Hi, welcome to Chapter 6 of the Kids Connection. I'm Pam.
And I'm Jim. And let's start off with our verse. Good morning, dear earth. Good morning, dear sun. Good morning, dear trees, and the flowers, every one. Good morning, dear beasts and birds in the tree. Good morning to you, and good morning to me.
Now let's say it with our friends at home.
Good morning, dear earth. Good morning, dear sun. Good morning, dear trees, and the flowers, every one. Good morning, dear beasts and birds in the trees. Good morning to you. Good morning to me. Excellent. All right, how about a clapping game?
All right, well, should we do our England, Ireland?
Let's do that one.
Okay.
Okay. England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. Inside, outside, donkeys' tails. Now let's do it silently to yourself.
With the kids at home. Join us.
Join us, yes. Excellent. Okay. All right. Do you remember our old clapping game? Peas,
Should we try
porridge,
that?
hot?
Do you
Let's
guys
try
remember doing peas, porridge, hot? We'll do it, and then we'll do it with you.
Let's try it again. Okay. Peas, porridge, hot. Peas, porridge, cold. Peas, porridge in the pot, 9 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold. Some like it in the pot, 9 days old. Let's try that one silently too.
So do it with us, and we'll just do it
without talking. Yeah. Whoops. Whoop.
That was fun!
Yeah, it's okay to mess up. It's okay.
Today we have a new nursery rhyme for you, and it's Bad Bad Black Sheep, and it's about the number 3.
Excellent.
I'm going to sing it. Ready? Bad Bad Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. 1 for my master and 1 for my dame. 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane. Baa, baa, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. Now you sing it with me. Ready? You want to sing too, Jim? Go ahead.
Oh, sure.
Here we go. Baa, baa, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. 1 for my master and 1 for my dame. 1 for the little boy who lives down the lane. Baa, baa, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, 3 bags full. We know some other nursery rhymes, don't we?
Oh, we know quite a few, yeah.
Should we review some of the ones we've done before?
Let's do it.
All right, you
It's
go
good time
first.
for review.
You go first, and then our friends at home will join us.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
So let's do it with you guys at home. Ready?
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
Do you know another one?
Sing a song of sixpence?
Yeah, let's say that one.
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye. 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie.
When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in the parlor, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out her clothes. Along came a blackbird and snipped off her nose. Woo. Should we do that one more time? And this time I'll sing it, and you can say it with me, or you can sing it with me. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in the parlor, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes. Along came a blackbird and snipped off her nose.
Hope that doesn't happen to me.
I know. Watch your nose when you're out hanging up laundry. We have a new song for you today called When I Was Two. And it has some motions with it. But first, I'm going to sort of give you the tune, and then we're going to sing it, and then we're going to add the motions. So
another number song or...
Yes, the number 2.
Yeah. First,
I'm going to give you the tune, then we're going to sing the song together, and then we're going to add the motions. So here's how it goes. Da-dun, da-dun, da-da-dun, da-dun, 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 dun, 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 dun. The words go like this. When I was 2, I buckled my shoe the day I went to sea. I jumped aboard a pirate ship and the captain said to me, we're going this way, that way, forwards and backwards, over the Irish Sea. So now we're going to march together and we're going to add a couple little motions in. So are you ready?
Let's get ready to march.
We'll go a little slower so you can join us. When I was 2, I buckled my shoe the day I went to sea. I jumped aboard a pirate ship and the captain said to me, we're going forward this way, that way, forwards and backwards, over the Irish Sea.
See, everything takes practice.
It does take practice. Let's
Yeah.
practice it one more
Let's
time
try it
with our
again.
friends. Okay, here we go. We're going to march. When I was 2, I buckled my shoe the day I went to sea. I jumped aboard a pirate ship and the captain said to me, we're going this way, that way, forward and backwards, over the Irish Sea. That's a fun song.
That is kind of fun.
I think
like
we'll
that.
sing that again.
Yeah, I like pirate ships. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have a verse about numbers as well.
Okay.
And we've done it before. It goes like this. Oh, we start with our hands like this, and we pretend that our fingers are like the rays of the sun, kind of like that. So it starts like this. Oh, and about halfway through, we'll also add the number 2, so listen for that. Okay? 1 is the sun that shines so bright. 1 is the moon so high. 1 is the day. 1 is the night. 1 is the sheltering sky. Here comes 2. 2 are the eyes with which I see. 2 are the ears that hear. Joy and sorrow both live in me, so do courage and fear.
Cool. I really like that second verse.
Mm.
We're going to do it again, and we're going to do it with you at home. Okay? Here we go.
Okay.
Let's try it.
All right. Our hands like this. 1 is the sun that shines so bright. 1 is the moon so high. 1 is the day. 1 is the night. 1 is the sheltering sky. 2 are the eyes with which I see. 2 are the ears that hear. Joy and sorrow both live in me, so do courage and fear.
Joy, sorrow, courage, and fear.
All feelings. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, so let's review the story from last time. That was about John Henry. Remember we said he was like an American folk legend. So John Henry, wow. You know, when he was born like 10 times bigger than most babies. And he was strong. And he started growing the day after he was born. And, he reached around and nearby he picked up a hammer and a piece of steel. And he said to his father, he said, "One day I'm going to be a steel driver." And sure enough, by the time he was 6, he was already outside helping, working with other men. And he would carry heavy things. And by the time he was a young man, he became what they called a steel driver. And those were men who went around with big steel hammers, and they would hammer rocks, and they would hammer steel spikes, and they were helping build the railroads. Which, if you've ever seen a train, that's how people used to get around from place to place before there were cars. So, yeah, John Henry became one of the best steel drivers anywhere. And he married a woman named Pollyanna, and they had a son. And people really liked John Henry because he would say things like, "A man just got to do his best." And if another man was sick or they were tired, John Henry would step in and he would do their work for them because he was the strongest. Sometimes he didn't even eat while he was working. Or he could work all day and he hardly seemed to get tired. So he became very valuable and he impressed a lot of people. And they were working building the railroad. And the railroad was called the C&O. And that stands for Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. And so they were trying to build a new part of the railroad. And they were going down through West Virginia. And they came to a place called Big Bend Mountain. And the person who was in charge said, "Well, the mountain's too big to go around it. Looks like we'll just have to go through it." And this mountain was maybe a mile wide. And everybody thought, wow, that's going to be impossible. But John Henry just kissed his hammer and said, "Okay, here we go." And at that time, it took 1,000 men, and a lot of people became sick and tired. And a salesman appeared one day and said, "Well, I've got a machine who can do the work faster than 10 of your men." And the person in charge said, "Well, John Henry, do you hear that? That sounds like a race. Sounds like a challenge." So sure enough, the next morning, they lined up. John Henry was there with his hammer, and all the people cheered for him. "Go, John Henry!" And the big new machine that could drive steel was there, and the salesman was sitting in the cockpit ready to start. And they started them, and off they went, and both were going fast. But the machine pulled into the lead, and John Henry was doing his best with his hammer, but the machine still got in front. And then John Henry said, "Okay, time to do something." So he went and got 2 hammers. And then John Henry started working with both arms, 2 hammers, and he caught up to the machine and he started to pass it. And then they got to the mountain, and John Henry started to plow into the mountain, and they were both working in the dark. And they heard sounds, great sounds coming from inside the mountain. It sounded like the whole mountain was going to collapse. And here, it was only the sound of John Henry banging away with his hammer. And meanwhile, inside the mountain, the machine broke down. And shortly after that, John Henry pounded his way through the mountain and emerged by himself. And everyone cheered, "Yay, he made it, he beat the machine." And he said something like, "Bring me a cold drink of water," because you can imagine how much work that was. And yeah, that was the day that John Henry defeated the steel driving machine, and also it was really a victory for the other people who worked there too, because sometimes machines are great, but sometimes too, like in that case, they probably would have put a lot of men out of work who really needed the work. He was very determined.
So John Henry had a big talent, and his talent had to do with his physical strength. And in fact, he was sort of like a legend. We don't really even know if all of the things about John Henry are true, or if it was just a story that was sort of exaggerated because he was pretty amazing. But now I'm going to tell you a true story about another person with a big talent who was also very amazing. But this is all real. And this person's name is Katherine Johnson. Katherine Johnson was determined too, but more importantly, she had a really big talent for math. She loved math. And early in her career, when she got to be an adult, she was called a computer. Not the kind of computer that you work with in your house. Back in the 1950s, there were no computers like we had today. People had to solve hard math problems by themselves. Sometimes they used adding machines or rulers, and these people were called computers. They were really human computers. And they hired really smart women to work as computers for a place called NASA. NASA was a group of people who were really, really smart, and they worked to help put people into outer space, and they helped send an astronaut to the moon. So, what was Katherine Johnson's life like? How did she get to be this really amazing person who knew how to help people get to the moon? Well, as a young girl, Katherine loved to count. Remember a couple of chapters ago where we had our stones and we were counting 24 stones and 12 stones? Well, Katherine counted everything. She would count the number of steps she took in the road. She counted the steps into church. She even counted the forks and plates when she washed the dishes. Katherine loved to learn. She loved learning math the most. Katherine went through school quickly. She started high school when she was just 10 years old. Most people, when they're 10 years old, are going into 5th grade. So she jumped way ahead of the line because she worked so hard and she loved math so much. When she was 15, Katherine entered college. That was after high school. She took classes to become a mathematician. A mathematician is a person who's an expert in math. She learned how to use big problems by using math, especially geometry. Geometry is a kind of math that uses lines and shapes and angles. Katherine studied hard, and she graduated from college when she was 18. Most people just start college when they're 18. If you add all together the years that she skipped during school because she was working so hard and so fast, she skipped 7 grades. That's amazing. So what did Katherine do after college? Well, she became a teacher. She taught school. And then she got married and had children, so she stayed home with her children. But her husband became very sick, and when he became sick, she had to start teaching again. So she started earning the money for the family. When she was 34 years old, she heard that NASA, which is the group of really smart people that help astronauts go into outer space, she heard that they were hiring black women to solve math problems. At that time, most of those jobs were only for white men. Women didn't usually get included, and black people didn't usually get included, because people back then didn't understand very well how people were different and how different people could do really special things. And so she went to work at this place called NASA as a human computer. And she worked with a lot of other women, but she was different from the other human computers. She asked a lot of questions. She wanted to learn more about NASA and the work that they were doing to send people to outer space. So she started going to meetings. Before, only men attended these meetings, white men. But now, Katherine changed that. She learned so much that she left her job as a human computer and she became a team member who worked on different space projects for NASA. In 1962, which was almost 60 years ago, the United States decided to try to send people to the moon. That was big news. Getting to and from the moon had never been done before, and it would take a lot of work. So, the U.S. Space Agency, NASA, would have to solve many, many problems, and so they created large teams to solve the problems. Katherine studied how to use geometry for space travel, lines and angles and curves, and she figured out paths for the spacecraft to go around the Earth and land on the moon. NASA used Katherine's math, and it worked. NASA sent astronauts into what's called orbits. Orbits are when you go around the outside of something. So the astronauts would orbit the Earth in their spaceships. Later, her math helped to send astronauts to the moon and back. NASA could not have done these things without Katherine Johnson and her love of math. Later, she retired. She liked to travel and play games with her friends and be with her family, but she also liked to talk to students about school. She encouraged students to keep studying and to work hard, to learn more about math and science, and said to never give up on their dreams. When Katherine was a very much older person after she had retired, President Obama awarded her a special medal of freedom because of her important work with the space agency NASA and helping American astronauts get to the moon. She was such a healthy person. She lived a long, long time. She died just a little earlier this year on February 24th. She was 101 years old. Hey Jim, look
Wow.
what I found in the mailbox.
Oh, another package. I love it.
It has some books in it.
Oh,
It has a book about a little boy who's having a baby sister, and
okay.
it has a book called Hidden Figures.
What's it about?
This is about Katherine Johnson that we just talked about.
Oh.
And this is a book about her and her friends who worked as human computers and how she went to work for a space agency. It has a real picture of her right on the front.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
You know, there's a really good movie that kids can go see called Hidden Figures.
Oh, just like the movie, huh?
Yep. It's all about Katherine and what she accomplished.
Wow. Well, speaking of hidden figures and counting and space and rockets, you know, I like to play around with making things, and let's play around a little bit with rockets and see what we can make. So I'm actually going to show you how to draw a rocket, just using basic shapes. Okay? So let's start out like this. And if you have, you can follow along at home if you have some of the paper or crayons that we sent you. Okay, so I'm going to start by making a shape called, do you know what that's called at home? That's called a rectangle. Okay, so we'll start like that. Then I'll add another shape called a cone. It's shaped like this.
It looks like a gnome's hat, and it also looks like a crayon.
It does, it does. And right there, you could say too, that's a triangle. So let's add a shape like that, another triangle. And another, and maybe down here we'll add a few more. The ones on the bottom are maybe just a little bit bigger. And that could be our rocket, and it's always fun to pretend that it's blasting off. Okay, and if you want to, of course, you can add the ground too. If you want, you can add some clouds. That's always fun. Maybe the sun is over here. You can do it however you like. Okay, and that could be your rocket. Okay? All right, a rocket. Now, there's other ways to play around with this too to make things. Maybe at home you can find an old tube from your paper towel or from toilet paper, and you could use that to try and make a rocket. This is a little more complicated than just drawing it, but it's the same idea. And so from a paper towel, and the little pieces of cardboard, I don't know, I just found them from a box, and I do it like this. So, maybe you take a little square and you draw a line through it, and then you cut it, and then these can be the little fins that go on your rocket. And you could try to glue them on there or tape them. It's kind of hard though, and you have to experiment. And if it doesn't work out the first time, that's okay, because that's really how science is, right? Usually you find more things that don't work than do work. So it takes a lot of patience and effort. Oh, determination, right? It takes a lot of that. Okay? Another thing I made, and this seems kind of silly, but the one space module kind of looks like that. These are just to-go containers from a restaurant or a little cup. And this stuff is great. Maybe you have this at home. This is called aluminum foil. And if you tear this off, notice how shiny it is. It looks like metal. So if you wrap that around anything, it almost makes it look like it's made out of steel or metal, which is great. I love that. So there's all of those kind of things. You'll probably need some glue and some tape and a scissors. So another fun thing we can do is just try to make a paper airplane, right? Make something that flies. So you'll need a piece of paper, okay? Yeah, just about any kind of paper will do. And the first thing we'll do is fold it in half. Now I'm holding the paper the tall way and not this way. So holding it like this, let's fold it in half. And you'll probably want to hold it down on a table. Makes it easier. I'm just holding it up so you can see what I'm doing. So let's fold it in half. Take your thumb and finger and make what's called a crease. And I like to take my thumb and my fingernail and make a tight crease. I go over it like that. Okay? So now you've made a fold in the middle. Okay? Next thing we're going to do is take this little point right here and fold it down towards the center. And it's a little hard to do holding it in the air like this, but okay. So there we go. Great. Now let's do the same thing on the other side and make it look the same. So yeah, I'm putting mine down on the table. That's definitely easier. Okay. Now they should look the same pretty much on both sides. They call that symmetrical when it's the same on one side as the other. Great. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing again. Let's take this side and we're going to fold it towards the middle like this. And this fold is probably a little bit trickier than the last one, but do your best to fold it right up to that middle line. And then make another crease. These are going to be the wings of the airplane. Okay, so these are important. Okay, it looks kind of funny, right? It does not look symmetrical on both sides. But we're going to fold this one to the middle as well. You put this one down on the table for this one. Okay. All right. Should look like that at this point. Okay, now one other little thing, and you don't have to do this, but I have found this usually makes the plane fly a little better. Take the very top point and fold it down just a little bit. And again, you can experiment with how much. And like we were saying with trying to make a rocket, some things will work and some things won't work so well. It really is just about experimenting. That's where it's at. Okay? And try to have fun. If it doesn't work, it's okay. You learned something doesn't work. That's learning too. Okay? Did you do that? Fold it down? Okay, great. Now we're going to fold the whole thing in. Okay, and you've already got that line, so fold it all in. And this is a little hard. It gets a little stiff after a while. Okay, so fold it all towards the center. Okay, and then we're going to turn it like that. Looks like that. Okay, we're almost done. So now we're going to make the wings. So to do that, we're going to take this line right here and we're going to fold it down. And again, how much you fold it down, it's sort of up to you. We want a pretty big wing because that's what catches the air to make this fly. So let's fold it down about, I'm going to do mine about this much. You see how the wing now is going down below this line. Okay, it's shooting down. And we'll crease that the best we can. And again, it's getting a little more difficult to do. Put it down the table. Okay, and now once you did one side, the other side should be pretty easy. We're just going to fold that one down. We're going to try to match this one. So actually, let's flip this around. This should make it easier. And we'll just try to follow what's on the other side the best we can. Okay. All right, I've got two wings. And I'll kind of fluff them up. Make them kind of flat on the top like that. Okay, not bad, not bad. See what it looks like from different angles. All right, and it's no good unless it flies. So let's give it a test flight and see what happens. All right, at home, here we go, coming at you. All right, thanks guys, see you next time.
So we had a lot of fun again today. We practiced some of our verses. We did Good Morning, Dear Earth, and then later we did the one about one is the sun that shines so bright. We learned about joy and sorrow and courage and fear.
Mm-hmm.
We did some clapping games.
They're my favorite. I like the clapping.
England, Ireland, and peas porridge hot.
Mm-hmm.
We learned a new nursery rhyme.
Baa Black Sheep.
And then we reviewed a couple of the older ones, Humpty Dumpty and Sing a Song of Sixpence. We had a new song. It was a marching song. When I was 2, I buckled my shoe. That was fun.
I like them because they rhyme. Makes it easier to remember. I like that.
And they have a nice little rhythm. And then you retold a little bit about the story of John Henry.
John Henry, he was amazing.
He was a very
Steel
determined
driver.
man. And he had a big talent. And then we learned about a woman who, as a little child, had a big talent. But her talent wasn't in her body. It was in her mind. She could do math. She could count. And she could do something called geometry with different shapes and lines and curves and angles. And she loved math. And because of that, she was able to help people go into outer space, be in a spaceship that went around the Earth, and eventually go to the moon.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think that was fun for her.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And then you did some really fun things.
Yeah, we tried making a few things out of paper and cardboard. Paper airplanes are great, you know. And anytime you find a little piece of paper, you can practice and just try to make one and see how it works.
Yeah, and we learned about rocket ships, and we talked about a movie, Hidden Figures, which is all about Katherine Johnson and her friends who worked first as human computers, and then she worked with other NASA engineers. And there's another movie I want to mention. If you really like rockets, you're going to love the movie October Sky. It's a true story, again, about some boys that lived in a coal mining town in West Virginia and how they became scientists who loved outer space and learned how to fly rockets. So we learned a lot today.
We did. And, you know, you can still buy little models of rockets. Now, you probably have to be a little bit older to make them, but you can actually make them and launch them off
and make them fly
yourself. Yeah.
So there's many, many different things that we can be interested in, and we can dream about what we want to become, and then we can become it. Yeah. So there's so much more to learn, and there's so much more fun things that we're going to do next time when we come together. We can't wait to see you then. So long.
Goodbye.